Good morning. How are we doing this morning? Everybody okay? I know it's dark, it's rainy, it's sad outside, just a little bit sad. Yeah, we're glad you're here. And again, next week, we're getting ready for kind of this grand opening thing. And as we kind of get ready for that, there's some things that are coming with that. There's some pressure. There's some things coming up that we're excited about. We have heard from a lot of people who we're hoping will show up. I know for me this week, I got to spend some time on some podcasts, some radio shows, different things, getting to try to promote this and different things. And so we've had some response from that. I'm really excited about what that looks like. One of the big things we need that we could really use help with next week, I don't know if you noticed this or not, but we have grown a little bit already, and we've grown especially with families with children, which is exactly what we are hoping for. Like that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. That's a very good thing. And so for us, we're really excited about that. With that comes the need for hands who will help out with kiddos in general. Just like we'll hang out with kiddos, we'll go back in these rooms. As you can hear during the sermon, a lot of times you can hear them having like an awesome time back here, and they'll be what they do is we don't call it worship for them. It's just called a dance party. Which I wish worked for us too. I kind of do. I think that'd be awesome. But anyways, they have a little dance party back there. They have awesome stuff that goes on back there, and we could use more hands. If you're available at all, even if it's just once a month, one service a month, that you could go back there, hang out with nursery or pre-K or elementary, and some of it's teaching, but the teaching's really they do a great job getting you curriculum, all that kind of stuff. So if you could help us out with that, that would be awesome. And next week we're expecting to have more kids than usual, so we'd like to have more hands than usual to make sure we can handle that. And so we'd love to have your help if you're up for that. If you could help with that, that'd be awesome. We're really excited about what it's going to look like. And honestly, this week for me is a little different for me at least. This sermon, like this message, on Thursday, I think it was, that I was just like the one that I had planned and really thought out and had some work done to, I threw it away and was like, let's not do that one, which is always a good move. In case you're thinking about how to speak publicly, that's a great idea, is take whatever you've done and just scrap it and start over, like when it's just a couple days before you're supposed to speak. So I just kind of scrapped it. I just felt like there was something different we need to talk about, especially this week being the week before launch. And my week also just got crazy. There were some other things that got thrown into it, and it just kind of changed what I was looking at. And I don't know if you know or not, but this week we sent out these mailers. We sent out these flyers to every home within like quite a few mile radius here, like a pretty good distance. And we sent 5,000 flyers out. They looked like this. And these flyers, we thought were going to be like really easy. Like, I don't know if you know how this works or not, but this is usually really easy. You make flyers, you put them in the mail people take it to the places where they're supposed to go. They put them in the mailbox. That's what I thought happened. I thought it was like a very simple process where it's like, hey, can you send these? And they're like, yeah, sure. And they just take them and they just, go on their little routes and they put them in the places and they're happy about life. That's what I thought happened. That's how simple I thought it was. I was wrong. And I looked into some companies that do this for you, and it was like $5,000. And I was like, well, who does that? That's ridiculous. Like, that's overpriced. I'm starting to wonder if that $5,000 is worth it. It started to kind of come back, like maybe we should just pay for that. So what happened was we made these cards and we got them printed up and everything was going well. I went over to the main post office in Tampa, and I sat down with this guy. His name was Gerald. And Gerald and I sat down. I thought we'd be there for 20 minutes, getting to know what Gerald wanted out of us to make these cards. And so I sat down with Gerald for like 20 minutes, I thought. And he told me what I needed to do and how I needed to do it. But Gerald also really loves his job as a post office person. I don't know what his job is really. He does the direct mail stuff. So he loves his job. And so Gerald, after the first 20 minutes, continues on with more about the mail and more things that I should probably know. And then some more things that I should probably know. 2.5 hours later, Gerald and I were done. And I was like, I really have to get going. Poor Oliver, my son, was with me, and he was bored out of his skull. He was like, Dad, can we go yet? And I was like, yeah, just 1 second. I got to learn some more things about mail that I don't know yet. So just give me a second. I'm taking notes. So Gerald walked me through the whole process, and I thought I could not possibly need to know more than what Gerald did for me. So I find out I need to print these. So we sent Gerald what they were going to look like. We said, is this good? And he said, yeah, that's great. And so we got them off to print. We got them back. And then he said, now you need to go get these stamps. Now there's these certain stamps, these pre-canceled, nonprofit stamps that we need to go get. So I was like, I'll go get them. So I called 4 post offices in my immediate vicinity. Said I need the pre-canceled nonprofit stamps. 3 of those post offices immediately told me, I have no idea what you're talking about. I was like, so after 2.5 hours with Gerald, I now know more about your job than you do, which is concerning. I was like, okay, well, I'll call somebody else. So I called one office, and they said, yeah, we've got those stamps. So I go to the post office. I get there. I'm real excited, and I said, I need these stamps. And they said, okay. So they bring out 2 rolls of 3,000 stamps, and they sit them down. And I was like, well, I'm going to ship 5,000 things. And they're like, well, you have to buy 2 rolls of 3,000. You have to have 6,000 stamps. I was like, well, good. I can't wait to use those other 1,000 someday. And so they sit them down. I was like, okay, I'll take them, I guess. So I take the stamps and I go to buy them, and I go to swipe our business credit card. And as I do that, they're like, oh, no, we only take debit. I was like, oh, I don't have one of those with me right now. And it was like 4:30. They're like, well, we're about to close. Could you come back tomorrow? Like, yeah, I'll come back tomorrow. So the next day, I get there right when they open at 8:30. I buy the stamps. I'm super proud of myself. I called Gerald. Like, hey, Gerald, guess what I just did, Gerald? I got the stamps. I got 2 rolls of 3,000. I've got 6,000 stamps, but still, I got the stamps. And he was like, well, good. Are they the ones with the American flag or the ones with the dove on them? Well, they're the ones with the American flag because I'm patriotic. Oh, no, those aren't the right ones. Those are not the right ones. He was like, you need the ones with the dove. Those are the nonprofit ones. You got the wrong ones. I was like, you got to be kidding me right now. So I was like, where do they sell the ones with the dove on them? He was like, only one place. There's a place down by the airport. You have to go there. That's the only place you can get them. I was like, awesome. Well, that's good because I was hoping to go to the airport today. So I drop my son off. I take off for the airport. By the way, Oliver has been in every major post office in this county now. He really has. He knows more about it than I do, I think. It's kind of funny. He actually got sad that we had to leave one post office and go to another one at one point. He's like, I like that one more. I was like, it's sad that you have a preference of post offices, bud. You're 4. Like, life should be about other things. So I drop him off at school. I go to this post office down by the airport. I get there. I walk in with these 2 rolls of 3,000 stamps that are apparently for-profit ones. I sit them down, and I get in line. I sit them down at this counter, and I tell this guy, I said, I'm sorry, I need to buy the non-profit version of these. I have the for-profit version. He looks at me. He goes, who told you to come to me? I was like, is this like a drug deal? Like, what's happening right now? Like, is there a speakeasy back behind that safe there? Like, what happens? And I was like, Gerald? Do you know Gerald? He was like, I don't think I know Gerald. He said, but did he tell you to come find me specifically? And I said, no, he just said to come to this post office, but I'm glad I met you. You have a great sweater vest. And he was like, well, I'm the only one in this office that could do this for you. And I was about to go to lunch. Like, well, this is my lucky day. So glad I ran into you, bud. I didn't know there was this much pride in the post office work. And so he was very proud of himself. He said, well, here's what I'm going to do. And he tells me all the steps of what he's going to do. And I was like, you know what would be cool is if you didn't just tell him to, but you just did them. Like, at the same time you're talking about, you could just get them done. You know, that'd be awesome. And so he's telling me all the things, and then he starts to do them. And then he stops himself. He gets all the way up to checkout, and he stops himself. And he gets all the way, like, to the end of the whole process, and he's like, wait a second. Hey, Becky, you want to come check this out? And some lady named Becky perks up from the back, and she's like, yes. And she's the supervisor, apparently, and Becky comes over, and he's like, hey, Becky, check this out. Watch what I'm going to do. He walks all the way back through the whole process with Becky to show off because Becky was apparently very impressed with what he was doing that day. He's like, check this out, Becky. He's hitting all the buttons on the screen. He's doing his thing. He gets all the way to the end. He's like, see what I did there? And she's like, yeah, that's really good. I was like, I guess so. I guess that was really good. He seemed to do a really good job. So she's like, okay, well, let's do it. Let's hit the button. Let's finish the process. And so he goes to hit the button to finish the process. It doesn't work. None of it worked. He was very proud of himself for nothing. So we had to start all over. I was like, I need to exchange these. So what we had to do is, I had to take the 6,000 I had to exchange them, and they don't give you cash back for that, but they'll do an exchange process. So I give them the 6,000 I have. The ones we need, he explained it at length, no longer come in rolls of 3,000. They come in rolls of 10,000. Yeah. So we've now got 10,000 stamps with doves on them. Just so you know, we did one run of 5,000. We will be doing another run of 5,000 someday, maybe Easter, because I've got 5,000 more stamps to go, people. So I was like, okay, I'll take the 10,000. Can I exchange these? Yes. And so I walk out with my, my roll of 10,000 stamps. I'm like, okay, me and my stamps are out of here. I go on. I get back to the house, and I realize I get an email from the national office of the post office saying, your cards were wrong. You need to have, instead, it said Restoration Church on the top. It needs to say your full legal name of Restoration Church, Tampa Incorporated, whatever. I was like, okay, so what do I do about that? And they're like, you just have to put labels over that. So I was thinking, now I've got to put 5,000 stamps out. I've got to put 5,000 labels on now, which is cool. And so fortunately, a bunch of people came over and we got those done. So we got those finished. We got all the labels on, all the stamps on, did it. The guy who had to, nobody had to lick the stamps. They were self-adhesive, just so you know. Nobody had to lick 5,000 stamps. No Seinfeld episode there, if you saw that one. But so we get them done. We get them like ready to go. We bundle them up. We're ready. Like I feel like I could not do anything better than this. So I take them to the post office, and I've got 5,000 postcards in boxes. I get to the post office, and Preston's with me. We get there to the post office, and I go in, and I'm like, I did it. Now Gerald is busy this day, but his friend Chuck is not. And Chuck comes over. He's like, okay, I got this. And so Chuck's pumped. Chuck's like, let me see what you got. So I bring in one stack of them. He's like, oh no. These only have one rubber band around each stack. That's not going to do it. You need 2 rubber bands. 2 rubber bands. And these are also too thin of rubber bands. You need to be thicker rubber bands. These are not going to work. Because what happens if one of them just slides out when the person's carrying the mail? One of them just falls out. He doesn't know where it goes. It needs to be double banded so that it's protected from both sides into the stack. It's like, okay, well, I'll go back home and redo that by myself. That's no problem. So Marie and Janessa and I stayed up till about midnight the next night, counting out the stacks of 100 again, putting the right bands on them, putting the right labels on top of each one of them. So the next day I go back and I'm like, I did it. I know I did it. And so I go back over and I walk in like very proudly. I'm like, hey guys, I'm here. Is Chuck here? And Chuck comes out. I'm like, Chuck, check it out. Look at these. And he's like, these are good. And I was like, thank you for noticing, Chuck. It's like, can you put them in bags? Yeah, I can put them in bags. So I've had them all these white bags. I have 7 big bags of these mailers. I'm like, okay, they're ready to go, right? He's like, yep, they're ready to go. So here's what we're going to do. You need to pay your deposit and pay your application fee. I was like, okay, well, that's fine. I figured that was coming. So he's like, he does all the math. He tells me how much I owe. He does all this math, and he's like, okay, so you're just going to go pay this, and then you're ready to go. I was like, that sounds fantastic. So I go to pay it, and I bring my slip over with how much I owe, and I put it there. And the lady looks at me. She's like, so it'll be a check for this amount. I was like, the check situation, I don't, like the ones in the book, like the checks in the checkbook. And she was like, yeah, we only take checks. Like, but I don't have any checks with me. I just have a debit card because I was told that was necessary, and a credit card. And they were like, no, we don't take those. We only take checks here. What? Why? This is America. And so I was like, well, I don't know what to do. I was like, I'm going to have to drive all the way back and go get these other things because they have to count all of your bundles of hundreds of these cards. So could you start counting them? I'll go drive back and get the checkbook and come back. And they're like, well, we can't start counting until it's paid for. I was like, okay. So I'm thinking about it. And finally, Chuck comes up with an idea. Chuck, he took care of it. He was like, here's what we're going to do. You're going to go down to the Town and Country branch. You're going to ask for Janet. It's scary how many people I'm on a first name basis with, by the way, in the post office nowadays. He's like, you're gonna ask for Janet, and you're gonna get there, and you can pay the deposit at her register because she can take a credit card or a debit card where she is. So just drive over there and take care of it. I was like, yes, I'm gonna go find Janet. So Austin we hop in the car, we go over to go pay this, and we're like, all we have to do is just pay the thing, and we'll go back and we'll be done. So we go in, I look for Janet. I'm like, hey, Janet, find Janet. Janet, here's what I need. Okay, I need to pay this deposit. And she's like, oh, I've never heard of that before. So she goes through the whole computer. I was like, and she's looking through it all. She's talking to me about it. Again, postal workers, they're very happy about their jobs. It's shocking how happy they want to tell you all about it. So she's telling me all the things. She's going through the whole process. She's like, I can't find this anywhere. I said, do you know Chuck? She's like, oh, Chuck will. Yeah, I'll call Chuck. So she calls Chuck. He doesn't answer. I had just left the place. It was like 7 minutes before. And I was like, he doesn't answer. So she's like, okay, well, let me see what I can do. So she's trying to figure it out. So she eventually finds our deposit. We pay the deposit. I take my receipt proudly out of there, and I go back to the main hub, and I walk in with that receipt. I slam it down on the counter. I'm like, did it. It's done. We're done. We did it. And this fella named Albert's at the counter now. And Albert looks at it. He does all the math and he spreads it all out. He goes, "Who told you to pay that amount?" I said, "Chuck." It was Chuck. It's not me. It was Chuck. He was like, "Yeah, that's not the right amount. This is at 7.4 cents per unit. Your billing rate is 7.5 cents per unit." Well, what does that mean, Albert? You owe $5.09. We cannot count these until you've paid $5.09 more. Well, do you take cash? No, we don't take cash. We only take checks. I don't have a check with me, Albert. I don't know if we've been through this before. So what do I do now, Albert? Who's going to pay that $5? I'm hoping it's Chuck, personally. He did the math. And Albert looks at me and he's like, "You got to go pay it. How'd you do it before?" I said, "I went to this other post office." "Yeah, you're going to have to go back over there and pay the $5.09. Okay, Albert. It was, as a pastor, I don't know if I'm allowed to admit this, but I almost said bad words at that. That was the moment where things were almost said that couldn't be unsaid. And so I got in the car. Austin and I go over. We go to the other post office again. We find Janet. And I'm like, "Janet, I need to pay $5.09. She's like, "You're kidding me, right?" I was like, "You know, I'm going to pay $10 just in case." So I paid $10 into our deposit. I go back over, and I walk in with her receipt. Albert's now happy. Chuck is now uncertain of his math. Yeah, he might not have a job anymore. I'm not fully sure, poor Chuck. And then, so they count all of our pieces. They put them back in the bags. And I was like, "Well, you did it, guys. So we'll see you later." And they're like, no, you take these bags from Tampa back to the mail office you're going to send them from. That's on you. It's like, I have to drive them back over? And they're like, "Yeah." I was like, "Isn't that what you do all day? Like, you deliver things every day. That's what the post office does. You deliver things every day." "No, you take this." Okay, so I got the 7 bags, put them in my car, took them to the Trinity office, which is a terrifying little spot that you can't see. It's like in this little shopping center. I took it in, finally got them in the bags and into the right place, and they sent them out. From what I know, I wasn't in the mailing region, so I'm hoping that people got them. And isn't it, I mean, it's crazy when you think about this, like the process we go through for this stuff. The week, that took, again, the $5,000 would have been worth it. Just out of my own pocket, I would have probably paid it to not have to do this. It's amazing, like the amount of hours I spent in that and the amount of like time you spend in that. And you sit there and you're watching this happen. You're like, it seems to work. Like people get their mail every day. This seems to work. But at the same time, this is a really fragmented system. Like it's really broken. And not everybody speaks the same language. Not everybody understands the same things. It's a really broken system, isn't it? And as I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking, and I'm expecting this system to deliver this message that is so important for me. I'm putting it on their shoulders to go deliver this for me. And I'm a little terrified because I'm like, I don't know if it's going to get out there. I don't know if this is going to work. And I think that there's a lot of times where that's exactly how the church is. It's a broken, fragmented system, dealing with people who don't all understand the same things or speak the same languages. But at the same time, somehow Jesus had faith in this process, in this group of people, in this organization or this organism even, to say, I think that redemption can come through this. I think this message can still get out through this broken group of people. And I think Jesus knew that going into this. I think that's a terrifying thing in some ways. It's got to be scary for Jesus to let the reins go on that after he's seen how broken the people around him are, but he trusts them to carry this message for him. I think we're very fortunate where we're at right now because for some reason, don't know your background, don't know your whole story, but for some reason we have been placed in this time to do exactly this. This group of people with different backgrounds, with different understandings, this group of people who it's a broken system, this group of people that don't have their lives all figured out and put together perfectly, that Jesus called us to be those people who get to carry this message. I want to spend just a second just praying over just these cards or the people that will receive them or the people in our area, the people you're meeting with. And just spend a second praying for that because I think that that's maybe what we need to do more than anything today. is just spend some time praying for those people that'll be impacted by this. Last week I shared a story about another church that had planted and how they had missed the mark almost. They'd done all the marketing, but the day of their grand opening, hardly anybody came and they wept over that. Not because they were sad about numbers. They wept because they knew the people that needed to be there that day. They knew the souls that needed to be standing in that room that day, and they missed it. And we can leave things up to marketing, but that's not the end game. That's not what makes a church. That's not what makes the message happen of Jesus. That's not the end game. So I just want to spend a few seconds. If you would, you can bow right where you're at. And actually, I'd really ask you if you would just pray for just a second yourself, just silently. You can pray for the people in your community, the people you come in contact with, the people that you haven't come in contact with yet. Pray for our community just as a whole. Pray for our impact inside of that. And I'll close this in just a couple seconds, but I just want to spend a second just praying over that. Let's pray. Jesus, I thank you for this thing called the church, this thing that you established, this vessel that brings the kingdom from a distant future or a distant past into a present reality, God. This thing that gets to carry your name, even at times where we don't deserve to carry your name. This thing that gets to proclaim this message of restoration, of redemption, not because we've got it figured out, but because we're in that process too. God, I thank you for using us, for allowing us to be a part of it. And God, I pray for the people who don't yet know what that feels like, who don't yet know what it's like to live in a redeemed life, in a life that has been restored. And God, I pray that we would be open to those people, that we would have our eyes open looking for them, that we'd have our ears open listening to them. That as we meet with people, as we just come in contact with people just on a daily basis, God, that you would have us be in tune with what you're doing in this community and what you're doing in their lives and what you're doing in our lives, God. So God, I just pray that as there's promotion or there's things we can do to talk to people, God, I pray at the end of the day that you would have people here, not for numbers, not for seats being filled, God, but because we believe in your story of redemption. We believe in your story of restoration. And we believe that we get to be a part of seeing your kingdom come to this earth. And God, I pray that the people walking in these doors, we would steward that well, that we would be able to use the gifts you've given us and leverage those things to be able to welcome people into this place, to be able to welcome people into your kingdom and into your space as well, God. Pray you would use us in whatever ways we can during this week and just next Sunday as well, as we prepare ourselves for that. God, if it's like 5 people, that's awesome. If it's like 100 people, that's awesome. Really, God, whatever it is, God, I just pray that you would teach us to steward that well, to use the people that you've given, that you've trusted us with this important message, that you would use us to steward that well. Praise things in your name. Amen. Awesome. Yeah, I think Jesus, like, I worry, like, when Jesus left this alone, like, how terrified he must have been. Like, this is all we got. This is really it. And just real quick, I just want to give you, like, I know that, like, that was a 20-minute story about a post office. It wasn't really much of a sermon. But I want to just real quick give you something that that hit me hard this week as I was thinking about this. Jesus, in John 13, he knows he's leaving. He knows he's done here on the earth. And he says this is one of his last things he says to the disciples before he's crucified. And he says this, he says, "A new commandment I give to you." It's kind of a weird time to introduce new commandments, right? Like, he's at the tail end of his ministry on earth, and he's like, no, but I have a new commandment I want to put out there. Seems like an inconvenient time, and he says this: "A new commandment I give you, love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." If you love one another, that's how people will know whose you are. They'll know who you are, because they'll know that you're my disciples, and they'll know whose you are, that you belong to me because you love one another, right? And he says this, but right before that verse, he does this thing that if you read it through a new lens is so remarkable. And just real quick, I want to just talk about this because I think it's a beautiful, beautiful picture. Right before this in John 13, Jesus is sitting with his disciples. He's sitting in this upper room, and they're having their Last Supper together, right? And they're having dinner. And Jesus, it says that all power and authority had been given to Jesus. So it actually says that at the beginning of John 13, actually says that Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power and that he had come from God and was returning to God. Now, so that would seem like, so Jesus is going to do something authoritative, right? He knows he's got this power. He understands it. So now he understands that he's got this power. He came from God. He's returning to God. All authority has been put under him. So you would think he's going to stand up. He's going to give a big speech, or he's going to do something really awesome. And this is what he does. So therefore, because he has all this power and authority, then he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. This is not exactly the sign of authority that you would think would happen next. He wraps his towel around his waist, and after that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Sometimes Peter stated the obvious. Yeah, I am going to do that. He says, "You do not realize what I'm doing, but you will later understand." See, obviously in those days, they didn't have like fancy cars, and they didn't have fancy shoes, and they didn't have like a lot of things that covered their feet. They were walking on dirt. They were walking on dust. And anywhere they went, they would accumulate dust on their feet. I think there's a part of what Jesus is doing here that's so beautiful, because it's not, it is a story of service and a story of him serving his disciples and showing them how to love one another. That is the story. But he's doing something that's really beautiful here, because he's saying, I know where you've been. I know the places that are now on your feet. I've seen the dust that's accumulated. In fact, at this time, there would have been a phrase that rabbis used. It was Yo's been, Yo is there. And as rabbis walked, it meant cover the dust of your feet with the dust from my feet. So it means that as the rabbi would walk, he would expect to kick up dust. And as he kicked up dust, it would cover the feet of his disciples that followed behind him, right? So they're supposed to follow him that closely. Disciples were supposed to live with Jesus in that kind of proximity. Any rabbi would have had to do that. In fact, there are stories now of rabbis still to this day whose disciples will go into bathrooms with them, who will follow them into sacred spaces because they're supposed to follow that rabbi as closely as possible. Jesus has been kicking up dust for years and years and years, and he's been putting this dust on their feet. And now he's saying, I know all the places you've been. I've seen all the things that you've done, and I'm taking away a safety net. I am going to wash those things off of your feet. I want to wash your feet. All the dust, all the places you've been, all the things you've done, I want to take those away. I want you to start fresh. Wouldn't it be awesome if we were a church that had that reputation of a place where people started fresh? Where all the places they've been didn't matter anymore and they could wash them away. They could be cleaned, started over, and Jesus washes that away from them. The scary part is Jesus also takes away the safety net. And he trusts this thing called the church and says, you're going to go forward and you're going to go from here, disciples. This has been the safety net you've had for so long. That's terrifying, isn't it? For me, it's terrifying. I know just recently it's been chilly outside, right? So I decided I was going to go run. And I've been kind of a weenie about getting up early in the morning and running because it's cold. So I was like, I need to buy something that's warmer. So I went to the Dick's Sporting Goods and I was like, I need some running pants. And they're like, we don't have running pants. And they were like, we have tights. And I was like, that's not like in the men's section, or? The guy was like, yeah, we have men's running tights. And I was like, that's not a phrase. That's not a real, men's running tights is not a phrase. It's not, you made that up to sell some hosiery to men. And they're like, no, we've got them. So I go over to this section of the store with this guy. He's showing me the tights. He's like, see, you just put these on, and then you can wear shorts over them if you want. I was like, if you want. I think that's the only way you wear them probably, is you put shorts over them. He's like, yeah, you can wear shorts over me. He's like, but these are what you need to wear. I was like, okay. So I go and I buy these tights. And I said, do you have any on clearance? And he said, yeah, we do. He sends me over to this corner of the store where the clearance is. I go over, and there is one pair on clearance that's my size, and it is forest green. And I was like, I'm going to look like Peter Pan. I'm going to run in green tights. And so I already had an issue with this whole situation, right? So I'm like, I'm gonna put on these tights. I'm gonna go run. So it was early on I think it was Monday morning, and it was like 5 o'clock in the morning. It was chilly, if you remember. It actually was a little cold. And I was like, I guess I'm gonna wear these tights. So I put on the tights. I did put on shorts over them, and I'm thinking it's really dark. Nobody's gonna see me. And so I go out for a run, and I'm running down the road, and I'm on this sidewalk. I get a couple miles in. And it's early in the morning. I'm not really paying attention. It's very dark. I can't really see where I'm going. And I'm not really paying attention. And I hit this spot in the concrete that was extremely uneven. And when it caught my foot, I fell. Like, not just like a little bit of a fall, like I just tumbled onto the concrete. And I fell, I skinned up my hands, I skinned up my knee, I had blood coming out of my knee, and I ripped my tights, which is a phrase I never thought I'd say in my life. I ripped my tights, and now there's blood coming out, so they've gone from just green to like a Christmas color situation. I've got some red, some green, and I'm thinking, oh man, and I'm laying there for a second, and I see and I'm thinking, at least it's dark, nobody's around. I see all these cars now stopped on the side of the road looking over like, you okay? Like, yeah, just my pride. A little bit of my knee, but my pride is never going to be the same. And it's amazing, though, as I sat there and I tried to hop up as quick as I could and, keep moving. And I thought about, like, my son who falls all the time. And I thought how amazing it is when you're kids, like, we keep telling kids, get up and keep trying. Get up and keep going, Try new things and experiment with stuff. And, you're going to be great at everything. We tell our kids that all the time. As you get older, the reality of that stops. Like, it was much harder for me to get up and keep moving than it was when I was a kid. Isn't it amazing how that happens as we get older? We think sometimes the younger kids, like they have a hard time, when we're children, we have a hard time understanding new concepts and moving into new things. But children have such an easy time with that compared to us, because the older we get, the more set in the ways we are, right? And I think when Jesus is saying this, he's saying, listen, guys, I'm going to remove a safety net, and you're going to have to trust me on this. I need you to keep moving forward. I'm not going to be here physically anymore. I'm going to send you this thing called the Holy Spirit, but I'm not going to be here. And he turns them loose with this gospel. And he lets them go for it. Isn't that crazy? I mean, it's crazy. He says, no, you need to go for it. There's a verse just a few passages later even where Jesus, he comes back and he's in the garden after he's resurrected. And he sees these women who have come to the tomb, and they come up to him and they hug him. And it's amazing. There's this quick quote that he says, and they hug him, and he says, don't hold on to me. What kind of jerk are you, Jesus? Like, you just came back from the dead. These women are sad. They are happy to see you. They want to hug you. That's not weird. And he says, no. Don't hold on to me, because they're thinking, let's get the band back together. It's the reunion tour. It's going to be just like it was before you died. It's going to be perfect. It's all going to go back the same it was. He's saying, no, it's not going to be the same. There's something new that's going to happen in your midst, and you need to be on the lookout for it. Guys, there's something new that's going to happen in our midst. I don't know what it looks like. I don't fully understand it, but I believe that Jesus is saying it's going to happen, and you need to be ready. Don't hold on to the things of the past. Don't hold on to who you were before, because something new is going to happen. Isn't that exciting? And we get to be a part of it. Again, I'm sorry. I know it's not much of a sermon. I know it's not much to bring to you today. Those are just thoughts that I've had on my mind this week, and I think it's so exciting to watch it happen right in our midst, that Jesus is letting loose this gospel still to this day that we get to be a part of, and we get to see a new thing that he's going to do right in front of our eyes. I don't want us to miss it. So if there are things over the next week, people you need to get together with, if there are things that you need to conversations you need to have, if there are things you can do around here to help us out next week as we prepare for that, we would love that as well. Anything that you see coming that we can be as prepared for the new as possible, I would love to have your help in that. We need it. We need it, because I think Jesus is going to do something amazing in our midst. So let's stand together. We're going to pray, and we're going to sing just a closing song as we wrap up this week. And I'm so excited about next Sunday and really us just going forward, guys. Let's pray together. Jesus, I thank you for being the kind of God, that you are, that you're constantly preparing us for the new. Even sometimes when it feels like you're shifting gears just without a clutch, that you just keep us moving forward, God. I thank you so much for that. And God, I thank you that you're the kind of God who's constantly doing new things within us and outside of us, God. God, that you're the kind of God who's doing new things in spite of us sometimes. Whether we're on board with it or not, whether we understand it or not, that you continually push us towards new things. God, I pray that as we move forward, that you would just be doing new things in front of us, and that we would have our eyes open, our hearts ready for what you're going to do in our midst. So Jesus, thank you for entrusting us with this message. And God, I just thank you for sending your son as the kind of son who would not come as a ruler or an authority, but he would come to serve each and every one of us, to kneel down at our feet and to wash off the people that we were, to make us new again so that we can bring this to other people and make them see this new life in front of them. Praise things in your name. Amen.